So at this point, I want to bring up Mrs. Harper, and we're going to get back your exams.
Thank you. I need somebody to stand by and hand these things out.
Let's got a couple of volunteers. We get a couple of staff volunteers here. Yeah, to help Mrs. Harper.
I was very pleased with the tests overall, and I know there are some of you in this audience who missed the first half of camp, and in some instances there wasn't even anything scored, but I want you to know that I'm glad you got here even for half a week, and I should tell you probably one little thing before we get started, and that is that the entry exams are deliberately stapled on the bottom, and they do not appear in the average on the front. So there were, with some exceptions, a lot of people made 10, 15, 20-point gains from the beginning to the end on the Constitution part of the test. And that's one of the things we like to see. The other is that Mr. Tregenza devised a fairly complex and detailed set of questions, and those scores were generally very well, and it corroborates my observations here in listening, watching the talks and so on, that most of you were paying good attention and being respectful and learning things. So with that, I'd like to kind of begin distributing, and maybe what we can do is just hand each of you a clump, and I'll list some last names and you come forward. For example, if your last name is Affleck, Britt, Carter, or Daniels, you can be in the first batch to come up, and Gracie will, is that Gracie? Yeah. Okay, you look different. And then when they're all up here, then Jimenez and Godfrey. Thank you. And, okay, if your name is Guptill, Hazelrig, or Kalis, okay, go to her. Okay, King, Water, Michelle, Pebble, and Pike. Thank you. Quintanilla? Rice, Rokiki, Shercliffe, and Soon. And, Quintan here, I'm sorry. Several here. So on this particular test, which happens, as some of you have noticed, to be identical to the one I used last year, that was due to last-minute computer problems, which were complicated by last-minute automobile problems, which somehow results in the usual late and overtired situation. But Camp Constitution 2018 exit quiz. It's on the 1776 Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution of 1787. In each section, and there's no directions on here, you just have to know this, you start with the first line or sentence, and anything that completes that correctly, whether or not in the exact language of the document, is supposed to be a filled-in blank. So if it's something that is obviously not in those two documents, at least obvious to those of us that have been hanging around these documents for more than a few decades, you're not to fill it in. In fact, I call those decoy questions or fake questions or fake answers. None of this is questioned. So, the first sentence, the Declaration of Independence is a notice telling King George III and the world that the people of these United States would separate from England and form a new government. And that's a reasonably correct summary. And that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So again, you would fill that in. The preamble to the Constitution, we, the people of the United States, in order to, and you would fill in, form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, and then we come to something else, give food and water stamps and guarantee free public schools to anyone. That obviously, that last is a decoy or fake statement. It does not belong in any worthwhile U.S. document. So the fourth dot or fourth circle down should be white. Then continuing with the preamble, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. In conclusion then, it says, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. And by the way, your last, or one of your later talks today was Mr. John McManus, and he explained to you about money. And certainly the only way you can secure the blessings of liberty to your posterity includes if you have real money. Otherwise, as of now, they're going to have to probably scramble for it a bit. With hard currency, real coin, specie coin, it's a lot easier to say. Okay, Article 1, Section 1. Now, from here on, you guys do the, how about a good no for anything that's wrong and silent approval of anything that's right. So, Article 1, Section 1, all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Commons.
Oh.
Correct. House of Representatives. Yes. Come on now. You all got voices. I'll wear mine out before you get done here if we aren't careful. Okay, so Congress consisting of a Senate and a House of Representatives. Section 7. All bills for raising revenues shall originate in the House of Representatives, but the Senate may propose or concur with amendments as on other bills. That's correct, yes. Senators can raise taxes anytime they want to. No. Okay, Section 8. The Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States, but all duties, and some other things, shall be uniform throughout the United States. Isn't that a yes? Oh. That's right, it's silence and no, right? Or not? Okay, I forgot that already. Sorry. Okay, we're still in Section 8. Congress shall have the power to borrow, a lot of you missed this one, to borrow money on the credit of the United States. Yes, they do. And the reason that's important, I think you get the idea that because we at this camp and Tea Parties and a lot of people are against excessive borrowing or against borrowing for unconstitutional purposes. You probably have heard a lot against the national debt and so on. Nonetheless, it was extremely important to the founders. In fact, when Franklin, Adams, and Jefferson spent so much time in Europe, their main purpose was to borrow money to finance the American Revolution by borrowing. Okay, Congress shall have the power to do all these things and to coin money, regulate the value thereof and of foreign coin, and fix the standard of weights and measures. So far, so good. To take control of all weapons from the people, leaving them helpless when invaded or robbed. Come on, let's hear it. No, there you go. To establish post offices and post roads. Yes, okay. To promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. Yes. To declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, and make rules concerning captures on land and water. Yes. Okay, and on the flip side of that, Article 2, Section 1, the executive power shall be vested in a President of the United States of America. He shall hold his office during the term of 4 years, together with the Vice President. Before he enter on the execution of his office, he shall take the following oath or affirmation. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Okay? Do you know, just an aside now, not on the quiz, do you know which president, so far as I know, was the first one to so badly fumble taking his oath that he had to do it secretly in the White House later in the Oval Office with the Supreme Court chief? Any idea? Can you name a president that might have fallen? I heard it somewhere. Obama, yes. Obama had to do that. He couldn't get it right the first time. Or maybe he couldn't morally pledge to it. I don't know what his problem was. Not that I think he cared about that. Section 2, the president may be at the mercy of the generals in a war situation because they will outrank him. No. Okay, good. He shall have the power by and with the consent, advice and consent of the Senate to make treaties, provided 2/3 of the senators present concur, and he shall nominate and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate shall appoint ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, judges of the Supreme Court, and all other officers of the United States whose appointments are not herein otherwise provided for, and which shall be established by law. Yes, okay. Article 3, Section 1. The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. So yes. The judges, both of the Supreme and inferior courts, shall hold their offices during good behavior and shall, at stated times, receive for their services a compensation which shall not be diminished during their continuance in office.
Yeah.
True. Section 2. In all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers, and those in which a state shall be a party, the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction. And that's, of course, a yes. The judges, both of the Supreme and inferior courts, shall hold their offices during good behavior and shall, at stated times, receive for their services a compensation which shall not, I'm sorry, I just repeated that, didn't I? So sorry. Took me 3 lines to notice it. Okay, section 2, we had just established original jurisdiction. And then here's one of the most important things, and certainly the most widely ignored thing about the American Supreme Court. In all other cases before mentioned, the Supreme Court shall have appellate jurisdiction both as to law and fact, with such exceptions and under such regulations as the Congress shall make. What do we call that kind of thing when one branch of government oversees another, or should?
Balance of power?
Yes, or there's a little more specific term. Checks and balances, yes. Balance of power is often referred to or used to refer to foreign entities and balancing interests like that, but perfectly reasonable, yes. And it is a balance, so is that wrong? Good evening, Dr. Monkton. Would you take a seat? Okay. Article 4, and I'm calling your attention to the fact as you take the test that this article deals specifically with states and their interactions and formation. So section 1, full faith and credit shall be given in each state to the public acts, records, and judicial proceedings of every other state, and the Congress may prescribe the manner in which such acts shall be proved. Yes, this is correct. And Article 5, and of course you've all heard of the Article 5 conventions. The Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, or on the applications of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states, shall call a convention for proposing amendments, which in either case shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of this Constitution, when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states, or by conventions in 3/4 thereof, as one or the other mode of ratification may be proposed by Congress, provided some things, that no state without its consent shall be deprived of its equal suffrage in the Senate. Okay, that's a yes, and it's something that Jefferson warned. While it's our duty to change a government if we have to, we shouldn't, for light and transient reasons, be doing that. And of course, that's one of the things that's happening these days. By the way, another interesting fact, and even as abbreviated as it is here, if you try to read it aloud, you find it is a very long sentence. And if you try to diagram it, how many of you do diagramming? Anybody? The old generation can raise their hands too, because I think it used to be much more common. Okay. If you diagram a sentence, I suggest you have a couple of whiteboards handy, because it takes a lot of room and up and down and connections and clauses and whatnot. Okay, the Bill of Rights. Note, the first 10 amendments were added to the U.S. Constitution in 1791. Amendment 1, that's the only one we deal with here on this exam tonight. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. That's something you've got to keep in your minds the way it is written, because it does not describe any wall or any separation. It is talking about your God-given rights Whether or not you believe in him, he gave you the rights, just as he gave the right of self-defense to everybody from grizzly bears to skunks to fish and so on. So that ends the, maybe not too exciting, but maybe very exciting depending on your take, review of the test. And you see, it was a little bit treacherous. I so hate to put false statements in that it was quite limited in that regard, especially the second page. So thank you all, and good luck next year.